Humanity had reached for the stars and succeeded. The United Earth Fleet's flagship, Vanguard, was on a routine patrol in the uncharted region of the Perseus Arm. Captain Marcus Reed was overseeing the crew, his eyes scanning the vast expanse of space displayed on the bridge's main screen. "Anything unusual, Lieutenant Chen?" Reed asked, turning to his science officer. Chen shook her head, her fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "Nothing yet, Captain. Just the usual background radiation and—" She paused, her eyes narrowing at a sudden spike on the sensors. "Wait, I'm picking up something. An anomaly, bearing 327 Mark IV. Reed leaned forward. On screen. The main display shifted to show a small, sleek vessel, shimmering as it phased into normal space. The design was unlike any they had ever encountered, sleek, dark, and menacing, with strange symbols etched along its hull. "Identify," Reed commanded. Chen's fingers flew over the controls. "Unknown configuration, no matches in our database. It's definitely not one of ours, or any known ally." Reed's mind raced. First contact scenarios had been drilled into them, but this was different. This vessel seemed deliberate. "Open a channel," he ordered. There was a brief static before the screen flickered, revealing an alien unlike any they had seen. Tall and slender, with shimmering silver skin and eyes that glowed a faint blue. The alien's demeanor exuded confidence, almost arrogance. "I am Zorax of the Triolian Empire," the alien declared in perfect English, a smug smile playing on his lips. "I come in peace, and with a proposition." Lieutenant Sarah Blake was tasked with leading the first contact team. As she suited up in the shuttle bay, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her since Zorax's arrival. The alien's arrogance was palpable, and his proposition, offering technological secrets in exchange for access to their ship, seemed too good to be true. Blake and her team boarded the shuttle, and as they approached the alien ship, the sleek design and eerie silence added to her apprehension. The docking procedure was smooth, and soon they found themselves standing in an airlock, facing a door that hissed open to reveal Zorax. "Welcome aboard," Zorax said, his voice smooth and condescending. "I assure you, this will be a mutually beneficial arrangement." Blake forced a smile. "Let's hope so." Zorax led them through the ship, his gait confident and unhurried. The interior was as sleek as the exterior, with soft blue lights illuminating the hallways. Strange symbols adorned the walls, and the technology was far beyond anything Blake had seen. As they reached the ship's core, Zorax gestured to a console. "This is the heart of our propulsion system. I believe your engineers will find it enlightening." Blake nodded to her team, who began scanning and recording the data. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and not just by Zorax. "Why offer this to us?" she asked, keeping her tone neutral. Zorax's smile widened. "Because, Lieutenant, I see potential in your species, a chance to elevate you. But first, I need something in return." "And what's that?" Blake asked, her suspicion growing. "Access to your ship's systems," Zorax said, his tone casual. "For research purposes, of course." Blake's eyes narrowed. "We'll need to discuss that with our captain." Zorax waved a hand dismissively. "Of course, take your time. But remember, time is a luxury not always afforded to those who hesitate." Back on Vanguard, Blake reported her findings to Captain Reed. "He's up to something, sir. I don't trust him." Reed nodded, his expression grim. "Neither do I. We'll play along for now, but keep a close eye on him and make sure our security protocols are airtight." As Blake returned to the alien ship, she noticed Zorax planting small devices around the corridors. Confronting him, she asked, "What are those?" Zorax's smile didn't waver. "Safety measures, Lieutenant. Nothing more." Blake's instincts screamed otherwise, but she had no choice but to report back to Reed. "He's up to something, Captain. We need to be prepared." Reed's expression hardened. "Double the security. If he makes one wrong move, we'll be ready." The stage was set for a confrontation, and as the crew of Vanguard braced themselves, they knew that Zorax's arrogance might just be his downfall. Captain Reed's mind was racing as he considered their next steps. The mysterious devices that Lieutenant Blake reported were certainly concerning. Reed knew they had to proceed cautiously, yet decisively. Lieutenant Chen, Reed called. I want a full diagnostic of our systems. Check for any irregularities or unauthorized access attempts. Chen nodded and immediately began her work. Reed turned to Blake. Keep an eye on Zorax. We need to know exactly what he's up to. Report any suspicious behavior directly to me. Blake saluted and left to resume her surveillance. Meanwhile, Zorax was acting as if he had nothing to hide. He continued to explore Vanguard, making notes and offering technological advice, which the engineers politely accepted, but did not act upon without Reed's explicit orders. As the hours passed, Chen's expression grew more concerned. Captain, she finally said, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns. It looks like Zorax's devices are attempting to interface with our ship's core systems. They're subtle, but they're definitely there. Reed's jaw tightened. He's trying to take control. We need to disable those devices immediately. Blake and her security team were dispatched to locate and remove the devices. They moved swiftly, but as they deactivated the first few, Zorax appeared, his expression a mask of calm indifference. Captain Reed, he said, addressing the bridge through the intercom, I'm afraid I cannot allow you to interfere with my work. It's for your own good, after all. Stand down, Zorax, Reed replied, his voice steady. Your actions are a breach of trust and a violation of our ship's sovereignty. Zorax's calm demeanor cracked slightly, a hint of irritation flashing across his features. You humans are so predictably stubborn. Very well, if you won't see reason, then I'll have to resort to more direct measures. With that, Zorax activated a command on his wrist device, and suddenly the ship's lights flickered and a low hum reverberated through the hull. Zorax had initiated his takeover. Panic began to spread among the crew as systems started shutting down. The main engines powered down, and life support systems switched to emergency reserves. Reed quickly took command. Engineering, I need a manual override on all critical systems. Security teams, prepare for intruders. Lieutenant Chen, get me an analysis of what's happening. Blake and her team rushed through the corridors, deactivating Zorax's devices as fast as they could. But it was clear that Zorax had planned for this contingency. The devices were only part of his strategy. He had also uploaded a virus into their system. Captain, Chen reported, her voice strained, Zorax's virus is attempting to lock us out of our own systems. We're fighting it, but it's incredibly sophisticated. Reed clenched his fists. Keep at it, Lieutenant. We need to regain control. In the heart of the ship, Blake confronted Zorax. You underestimated us, Zorax. You won't get away with this. Zorax's expression was a mix of amusement and contempt. Underestimated? No, Lieutenant, I simply overestimated your intelligence. But it seems I'll have to handle this myself. He raised a small device. But before he could activate it, Blake lunged at him, knocking it from his hand. They grappled, each trying to gain the upper hand. Blake's training gave her the advantage, and she managed to pin Zorax to the ground. Captain, she called over the comm, we've got him, but he's already done considerable damage. Reed's voice came back, calm but determined. Good work, Lieutenant. Secure him and bring him to the brig. We need to clean up this mess. With Zorax in custody, the crew worked tirelessly to remove the remaining devices and purge the virus from their systems. It was a grueling task, but their combined efforts slowly brought the ship back to operational status. Reed stood over the brig, looking at Zorax behind the energy barrier. You thought you could outsmart us, Zorax, but you've only made us more determined. Whatever you're planning, it ends here. Zorax's eyes were cold. You're fools if you think this is over. My people will come for me, and when they do, your precious ship will be nothing but debris. Reed remained resolute. Let them come. We'll be ready. With Zorax securely locked away and the immediate threat contained, Captain Reed turned his attention to their next challenge, survival. The Vanguard was still far from full operational status, and they were stranded in an uncharted system with limited resources. Engineering, status report, Reed commanded. Chief Engineer Patel's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've stabilized the primary systems, but our engines are still offline. We'll need significant repairs before we can get moving again. Reed sighed. Understood. Prioritize life support and communications. We need to find a way to signal for help. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Blake and her team continued to explore the surrounding area. Using the ship's sensors, they identified a nearby planet that seemed to have potential resources. A scouting party was assembled to investigate further. As the shuttle approached the planet, Blake marveled at the sight. The landscape was a mix of rugged mountains, dense forests, and strange bioluminescent flora. It was beautiful, but there were signs of a recent battle, crashed ships and scorched earth. "Stay sharp," Blake warned her team. "We don't know what we're walking into." The team landed near an abandoned alien outpost. The structures were advanced, but it was clear they had been deserted in a hurry. Blake led her team through the ruins, scanning for anything useful. They found storage units filled with raw materials and energy sources that could aid in Vanguard's repairs. "Captain, we found an alien outpost," Blake reported. "It looks like there was a battle here, but the area is clear now. We've located some resources that could help with our repairs." "Good work, Lieutenant. Start gathering what you can. We'll send another team to assist," Reed replied. As they worked, Blake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Her instincts proved correct when they encountered a group of survivors, a mix of different alien species, all wary and distrustful. One of the survivors, a tall insectoid creature named Kalara, approached Blake cautiously. "We mean no harm," Kalara said in a halting but understandable version of English. "We are refugees from the Triolian conquest. We fled here to escape." Blake lowered her weapon slightly. "We're not here to fight. We're just looking for resources to repair our ship." Kalara studied her for a moment before nodding. "We can help, but you must understand. The Triolians will come looking for their lost vessel. You are in grave danger." Back on the Vanguard, Reed was coordinating the efforts to gather resources from the planet. The engineering teams worked tirelessly to repair the critical systems. Zorax remained defiant in his cell, confident that his people would soon arrive to rescue him. Reed was in the middle of a status meeting when the ship's alarms blared. "Captain, we've got incoming," Chen shouted. "It's a Triolian warship and it's heading straight for us." "Battle stations," Reed ordered, his voice calm despite the urgency. "Prepare all defensive systems and get the engines online now." The crew sprang into action, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. The Triolian warship was massive, bristling with advanced weaponry. Reed knew they couldn't win a direct confrontation. "Lieutenant Blake, what's your status?" Reed asked over the comm. "We're securing the resources, but we've encountered refugees from the Triolians. They're willing to help us, but we need more time," Blake replied. "Understood. Do what you can. We'll hold them off as long as possible," Reed said. The Vanguard shook as the Triolian warship fired its opening salvo. The shields held, but only just. Reed knew they needed a plan, and fast. In the brig, Zorax watched the battle unfold on a monitor, a smug smile on his face. "I told you, Captain. You cannot hope to win against us." Reed ignored him, focusing on the battle. "Chen, find me a weak spot. Anything we can exploit." Chen's fingers flew over the controls. Their starboard thruster array. If we can disable it, we might be able to outmaneuver them." Reed nodded. "Target their starboard thruster array. All weapons, fire at will." The Vanguard launched a barrage of torpedoes and energy blasts, focusing on the Triolian thrusters. The enemy ship's shields absorbed most of the damage, but a few shots got through, causing the massive vessel to list to one side. "Good hit," Reed shouted. "Keep the pressure on." As the battle raged, Blake and her team worked frantically to load the shuttle with resources. Kalara and the other refugees assisted, their fear of the Triolians overshadowed by a desperate hope for survival. "Lieutenant Blake, we need those resources now." Reed's voice crackled over the comm. "We're almost done, Captain," Blake replied, loading the last crate onto the shuttle. "We're heading back." The shuttle lifted off, racing back to the Vanguard as the ship's defenses continued to hold off the Triolian assault. The Vanguard's crew fought valiantly, but it was clear they couldn't hold out much longer. Just as the Triolians prepared to deliver a crippling blow, the shuttle docked with the Vanguard, and the engineering teams rushed to integrate the new resources. Patel's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we've got partial engine power. We can move, but not fast." "It's better than nothing," Reed replied. "Helm, plot a course for the nearest jump point. Let's get out of here." The Vanguard lurched forward, engines straining as they accelerated away from the Triolian warship. The enemy ship pursued, but the damage to their thrusters slowed them down just enough for the Vanguard to gain some distance. As they approached the jump point, Chen called out, "Captain, we're in range. Initiating jump sequence now." The Vanguard's engines flared, and the ship leapt into hyperspace, leaving the Triolian warship behind. The crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, but they knew this was only a temporary reprieve. In the aftermath of the battle, Reed stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. "We're not out of this yet," he said quietly, "but we've shown them that humanity won't be easily conquered." Blake approached, standing beside him. "What now, Captain?" "Now," Reed replied, "we prepare for the next fight, because it's only a matter of time before the Triolians come after us again. And next time, we'll be ready." The Vanguard drifted through hyperspace, the crew working tirelessly to repair and prepare. The temporary reprieve offered them time, but Captain Reed knew it was only a matter of time before the Triolians would find them again. In the brig, Zorak sat with a calculated look on his face, still confident despite his earlier defeat. Captain Reed decided it was time for a direct confrontation with their captive. Reed entered the brig, flanked by Lieutenant Blake and 2 security officers. He stood in front of Zorax's cell, arms crossed. "Your people won't stop coming after us," Reed began. "But you know that, don't you?" Zorak smirked. "Of course. The Triolian Empire does not tolerate defiance. Your resistance is admirable, but ultimately futile." Reed leaned in, lowering his voice. "I'm offering you a choice, Zorax. Help us, and we'll consider sparing you when this is over. Refuse, and you'll go down with this ship." Zorax's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to betray my own people?" "Your people abandoned you the moment they realized you failed," Reed shot back. "They left you to die here. Help us, and you might survive this." Zorax hesitated, his confidence wavering for the first time. The reality of his situation was sinking in. He was a pariah with no way back to his own people. "Very well, Captain," Zorax finally said, his voice resigned. "I will help you. But make no mistake, this is a temporary alliance." Reed nodded. "Agreed. Now tell us how to exploit their weaknesses." With Zorax's guidance, the crew learned of a critical vulnerability in the Triolian ship's reactor core. It was a dangerous plan, but it was their best shot at survival. The crew prepared for the inevitable confrontation, making modifications to the ship's weapons and defenses based on Zorax's information. Tensions were high, but there was a renewed sense of determination among the crew. The Vanguard emerged from hyperspace in a strategic location, close to a nebula that would provide some cover. The crew braced for the arrival of the Triolians, knowing that their window of opportunity was narrow. "All hands, battle stations," Reed commanded over the intercom. "This is it, people. Let's show them what we're made of." As expected, the Triolian warship appeared on the sensors, bearing down on the Vanguard with relentless precision. The enemy ship opened fire, but this time, the humans were ready. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered. "Target their reactor core, just as Zorax instructed." The Vanguard danced through space, dodging enemy fire while delivering precise strikes. The crew worked in perfect synchronization, each member playing their part in the desperate gambit. "Direct hit on their reactor core," Lieutenant Chen called out. "Their shields are failing." The Triolian ship faltered, its powerful weapons momentarily silenced. Reed seized the opportunity. "All weapons, fire at will," he commanded. The Vanguard unleashed a barrage of torpedoes and energy blasts, hammering the enemy ship. Explosions rippled through the Triolian vessel as its defenses crumbled. In the chaos, Zorax watched from his cell, a mixture of awe and resignation in his eyes. He had underestimated these humans, and now he was witnessing the consequences of his arrogance. The final blow came as the Triolian ship's reactor core overloaded. A massive explosion tore through the vessel, sending debris scattering into space. "Cease fire," Reed ordered, watching the destruction. "We've done it." The crew erupted in cheers, relief washing over them. They had faced the might of the Triolian Empire and emerged victorious. Reed turned to Zorax's cell, his expression hard. "This is the price of your arrogance, Zorax. You underestimated us, and now your people have paid for it." Zorax bowed his head, defeated. You have proven your strength, Captain. Perhaps I was wrong about humanity. Reed nodded. Perhaps. But this doesn't change what you did. You'll be held accountable for your actions. With the immediate threat neutralized, the Vanguard resumed its course. The crew knew they had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. They would need to continue their vigilance and prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. As they sailed through the stars, there was a newfound sense of unity and purpose among the crew. They had faced an overwhelming enemy and emerged victorious, proving that humanity's resilience and determination were its greatest strengths. And so the Vanguard pressed on, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store for them, knowing that they could overcome any obstacle if they stood together. With the immediate threat of the Triolian warship behind them, the Vanguard entered a phase of repair and recovery. The crew worked tirelessly, repairing the damage sustained during the battle and fortifying the ship for future encounters. Captain Reed, however, knew that they needed more than just repairs. They needed allies. "Lieutenant Blake," Reed called, "prepare a diplomatic team. We're going to visit the refugees on the planet. We need to secure alliances if we're to survive out here." Blake nodded, understanding the importance of this mission. She assembled a team and once again took the shuttle to the planet, this time with a clearer objective in mind. They were met by Kalara and the other refugees, who had witnessed the battle from the surface. "We saw what you did to the Triolian ship," Kalara said, her tone filled with respect. "You've proven yourselves as formidable warriors." Blake nodded. "We had no choice. We need your help, Kalara. Your knowledge of the galaxy, your resources. Together, we can stand against the Triolian threat." Kalara considered this, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. "The Triolians have oppressed many species. We have always wanted to fight back, but lacked the strength. Perhaps with your help, we can change that." Blake extended her hand. "Then let's form an alliance. Together, we can stand against them." Kalara shook her hand, sealing their pact. "Agreed. We will stand with you." Back on the Vanguard, Reed received the news with satisfaction. The refugees had extensive knowledge of the region and resources that could be crucial in the battles to come. "We'll start by integrating their knowledge into our navigational systems," Reed ordered, "and see if we can retrofit some of their technology with ours. This alliance is our best chance for survival." As the days passed, the Vanguard became a beacon of hope for other oppressed species. Word spread of their victory against the Triolians, and soon other ships began to arrive, seeking to join their cause. The Vanguard transformed from a lone warship into the flagship of a growing coalition. Representatives from various species gathered on the ship to discuss strategy and share resources. The once isolated humans were now at the center of a burgeoning alliance, united by a common enemy. With new allies and resources, the Vanguard was stronger than ever. The crew had grown, now including members from various species, each bringing their unique skills and perspectives to the table. The ship buzzed with activity and a sense of purpose. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. The journey ahead was uncertain, but he felt a renewed sense of hope. They had turned the tide against the Triolians, and now they had the strength of a coalition behind them. "All systems operational, Captain," Lieutenant Chen reported. "We're ready for our next mission." Reed nodded. "Set course for the nearest Triolian outpost. It's time to take the fight to them." As the Vanguard surged forward, the crew prepared for the challenges ahead. They had proven their strength and resilience, and now they were ready to liberate others from Triolian oppression. Lieutenant Blake joined Reed on the bridge. "We've come a long way, Captain, from barely surviving to leading an alliance." Reed smiled. "Indeed we have, Lieutenant, and this is just the beginning. There's a whole galaxy out there, and we're going to make our mark." The Vanguard moved through space, its presence a symbol of hope and resistance. The crew, now a diverse and united force, was ready to face whatever lay ahead. They had shown the galaxy that humanity, with its indomitable spirit and capacity for unity, could stand against even the mightiest of foes. And so the Vanguard and its allies embarked on their next mission, determined to bring justice and freedom to the galaxy. They knew the path would be fraught with danger, but together they were unstoppable. As they sailed into the unknown, the stars seemed a little brighter, the future a little more hopeful. The legacy of the Vanguard would be one of courage, unity, and the relentless pursuit of a better tomorrow.